Hello, in the video coming up, we'll be looking at the decision that Google made to scrap future Pixelbooks and what it means for the Chromebook. So if you've been following Chromebooks since they was launched in 2011, it's always been the case that Google has always brought out a Pixelbook every few years to show really what manufacturers, for other manufacturers to see what the Chromebook is actually capable of. And it was a really good thing that Google did, because at the beginning, most Chromebooks were budget Chromebooks, and the first Pixelbook was seen as something out there, like unreachable compared to other Chromebooks that was available. That's changed a bit over the last few years because manufacturers are also bringing out really good high performance Chromebooks. So I guess there is an argument that Google's job is done in a way, but I'm not 100% certain whether that's the case. It's not great news that they're not going to be making any more Pixelbooks, but what's the reasons behind it and what does it mean for the Chromebook going forward? The first thing I would say is I love my Pixelbook Go. This is the first Pixelbook that I've actually owned. I've not owned any of the other Pixelbooks that come before it, but I love it. And the reason why I love this Chromebook is because it's beautifully designed, it's nice and slim, it's got a great keyboard, and I mean a fantastic keyboard, which is really important to me because I type on my blog quite a lot. It's got excellent speakers compared to when you consider how compact it is, and the display is perfect as well. Full HD display, but you can get up to 4K if you want to with a Pixelbook Go. And this is the thing, although the Pixelbook Go is arguably one of their most advanced computers, it's still a great Chromebook, because previous Pixelbooks, they usually add something that Chromebooks at that time didn't have. So there was pushing it forward, pushing the market forward, so other manufacturers would go with them and start bringing out other Chromebooks like that. The issue I have is, do we have manufacturers who are prepared or in a position where they can bring out something just as good as a Pixelbook? Yes, like I said, you get loads of great Chromebooks out there, but I would say none of them beat a Pixelbook when it comes to design and the amount of effort that's gone into the design and to make them, keep them looking so great. And for me, personally speaking, for a laptop, that is really important, especially if you're going to be spending a lot of money on a laptop. One of the reasons why I know a lot of people brought a Pixelbook Go who have previously used Apple, and the reason they bought the Pixelbook Go is because it's so great. And I'm not too sure whether they would go and buy another Chromebook from another manufacturer. So there is a potential that Google could lose customers by not bringing out further Pixelbooks. But there's more to it than that as far as I can see. And my concern is where we're going with Chromebooks in the future, and is it going to be a problem? For me, personally speaking, for a laptop, I think it will be. Whether it will be for everyone, it depends on what you're looking for. But when I first bought my first ever Chromebook back in 2011, it was a HP 11. It was only a couple of £100. It was about the same in dollars in the USA. And it was 11.6 inch. It was really nice, really compact, had no fans, had no noise. It was perfect. Very similar to what the Pixelbook Go offers in terms of fanless design. So that means no noise and you get heat obviously, but it's evenly distributed over the casing on the Pixelbook Go. That's how it's been designed, to keep it cool, so it gets hot on the outside when you're using it, but that's perfectly how it's supposed to be, to keep all the internals cool. So they've put a lot of effort into that design. The issue I found over the last couple of years, and I've wrote about this quite a lot on my blog, is that when I upgraded from my Asus C302, which I absolutely loved, it was a great Chromebook, fanless, really compact, lovely. I didn't know what Chromebook I wanted next, so I got the Asus 713. It's a great Chromebook, don't get me wrong. It's a different aspect ratio to widescreen, so you get a taller display rather than wider, which is great if you're working on documents, not so great if you want to play games or use videos in HD, because you do get slight tiny little black lines at the top, but that's no big deal. But the problem for me is that it wasn't perfect because it had fans, and it was the noise and the heat that those fans created. So then I got the Asus CX5, and that's this Chromebook here. I've wrote about some of the issues I've had with this Chromebook. mainly that I had an issue with the speakers for a very long time, audio going from left to right, which was driving me crazy. Luckily, that's been fixed for mine, but I know there's still people who have that issue, so I'm hoping that's fixed in the future because I'm sure it's a software issue. But the problem I have with the Asus CX5, don't get me wrong, it's a 15.6-inch display, so I knew that at the time. So it's obviously quite big and it's obviously quite heavy. But although that's an issue, the main issue is the fans again. It's the same with the Asus 713, but this is an Intel i5, I believe 11th generation processor, and it's quad core rather than dual core, so that means the processor is super powerful. But what that means is those fans kick in quite easily, and it's a bit annoying personally. I don't want to own a laptop with fans because it's not just the noise they create, it's the fact that it gets in the way of the design because they have to have a certain space for the fans to be. It's the heat as well. It's just uncomfortable, very uncomfortable to use on your lap for a very long period of time, which is something you just don't get with the Pixelbook Go or any Chromebook that doesn't have the fans. And this is my concern because Chromebooks are going forward now, and there's lots of great Chromebooks, but I don't want to get to a stage where we feel that a great Chromebook just means that it's using the latest Intel 12th generation quad-core processor with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of SSD storage. That's nothing that amazes me. I'm not sure about you. It's just a fast performing Chromebook. But do we need such a fast performing Chromebook? I would say for 95% of people, you don't need it. You just don't. Okay, we've got Steam Linux Alpha, which is in trial at the moment. And that means that there's a Steam Linux Alpha app and you can install it on your Chromebook, but you'd need a real powerful Chromebook like the Asus CX5. And to do that, and I've used it and it doesn't work great at the moment, but that's fair enough. You wouldn't expect it to work great at the moment because it's in trial. But although I understand that some people might want to play games locally on a Chromebook, I'm not convinced that it's the right way to go, because the whole idea of the Chromebook was that it was a cloud-based operating system, so everything's done in the cloud. So I think installing games locally is going backwards. It's going back to what Microsoft Windows did, and that's fine. It's no problem installing games locally, but the issue is then you need a really powerful Chromebook, and that means lots of fans, lots of noise, lots of heat, and very, very, very expensive. And it gets in the way of the design. I think they would struggle to make a Chromebook with a quad core like this, with fans, without the fans. I just don't think it would be possible because the processor was overheat. So you've got to have them. And it's that sacrifice. When I first moved over to the Chromebook, I didn't notice it at first. I was just like, there's something I love about this laptop. Not just that it was a different operating system compared to my Microsoft Windows laptops that I used to use previously. And it soon dawned on me, it's because it's fanless. There's no noise. There's actually no vents. There's nothing apart from the ports. Very similar to what the Pixelbook Go is here today. And I'm sure that that's what most people want. Yes, of course, you're going to get people who want the fastest performing Chromebook you can get. It's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's one of the reasons why I brought the Asus CX5, because I wanted to try Steam Linux Alpha. But I would still challenge anyone who says you need a super powerful Chromebook to get most things done, because you don't. Unless if you're not going down the Steam Linux Alpha routes, even just using Linux apps, you can use Linux apps on a Chromebook like the Pixelbook Go with no problems. You don't need a 12th generation quad-core processor. Fine, if we're going to go down a route of that we get great video editing software on Linux, and by the way, I can't see that happening on ChromeOS at the moment, if I'm being honest with you. I've used the Linux video editors on what are available for the Chromebook, and they're just not stable enough. They're better online ones, and if you're using online video editors, then that's cloud-based technology, and that's what the Chromebook is all about. So I think Google has moved away from the Pixelbook at a very challenging time for the Chromebook, where it's going in the future. Because I think it's quite bizarre that after owning the Asus C302, I brought an Acer 713, wasn't happy with having the fans and the bulk of it and the noise from it, got rid of that. Then I got the Acer CX5. Again, I wasn't happy. I didn't really know at first what it was, and then I soon realized, I went, oh, it's because I can't deal with this on a day-to-day basis. I don't want a laptop that's hot, really hot and noisy. It's like it's taking off. I don't want that. That's what differentiated the Chromebook from Windows laptops. Windows laptops, horrible noisy things, really, they're hot. I just don't want that from a laptop. And this is to challenge what we've got going forward. Manufacturers, and it doesn't help that some blogs just go on about the latest new Chromebook you can get with the fastest processor and all of this. It's like, really, what do you need it for? Do you really need it? And if you ask yourself, the majority of people would say you don't need it. You don't need a quad-core 12th generation processor for a Chromebook. You just don't. It doesn't. Most things are done in the cloud. Okay, if someone could turn around and say Steam Linux Alpha is now perfect, it works fine, and it works on, that ain't going to happen. And that ain't going to happen until we get dedicated graphics cards on a Chromebook, and that means even more processors and even more heat and even more sound, and that's the problem. And I'm not talking great sound, I mean annoying sound, the fan noise. We just don't want it. So the reason why Google has moved away from the Pixelbook, there could be many reasons. One of the reasons obviously is, although Google obviously makes a lot of money, they're a business after all, and the cost of living has hit the whole of the world, and they have to consider what they're going to spend their money on. And it looks like they're going more down developing a new Android tablet, which is great. I love Android tablets. ChromeOS in tablet mode, don't get me wrong, it's improved massively compared to where it was a few years ago, but it still doesn't beat an Android tablet for that and tablet use. It just doesn't. So I think it's quite good that they're looking down the route of going through a new tablet. But my cynical side is thinking, is it because Google actually wouldn't want to bring out a product that had fans and the noise and all what comes with it? Would they want to put their name to such a product? And I'm questioning whether they would. I don't think they would. It wouldn't suit their style. It's not what they're about. They like bringing out really slick products that, you know, no fans, no noise, no heat, evenly distributed. That's what they like bringing out. That's what the Google brand is when it comes to hardware. Because although they're a software company, they're also obviously a hardware company with their Pixel phones as well. So I would be surprised that Google would even want to go down the route of bringing out a really powerful Chromebook. And I think they'd put a hell of a lot of design into it to try and do something about the heat distribution, rather than just having lots of fans everywhere, fans underneath perhaps, where it's just that heat and that noise. And that's a challenge for me. My concern is I've had to go back from getting an Acer 713 to an Acer CX5 and thinking, no, I'm not happy with these. And then I had to go back and get a Pixelbook Go. Don't get me wrong, Pixelbook Go is a great Chromebook, but it's a few generations back. And I've had to go back to a point where there was no fans and no noise. And I do believe that that is what most people want from a Chromebook. So I'm really hoping manufacturers in the future realise that not everybody is after a super powerful Chromebook. Fine, but there's nothing wrong with having one, but it's whether you're going to use that power. And even if you are going to use that power, would you be happy to sacrifice the fact that you've got to have noisy fans, the heat, and all the uncomfortableness that comes with that? And this usually means bigger casing as well, because they've got to have the fan. Unless they put lots and lots and lots of effort into the design, just like Google do with their products, you're going to end up with something that is going to be quite uncomfortable and quite noisy to use. And for me personally, if I wanted a really powerful ChromeOS computer, I'd get a Chromebox, because I don't mind a desktop PC being powerful and noisy, because it's not sitting on my lap. I don't take it with me. I don't mind. My Asus, that's a Chromebox 3, so it's not amazing. It is powerful. It's an Intel i5, but it's a few generations previously, and that kicks in a little bit with the fan noise, but because it's on my desk and it's at the back, it doesn't really bother me. So for Chromeboxes, it's fine. I would not have an issue. I wouldn't think for a second of getting a quad-core 12th generation Chromebox, because that's where I'd really want my performance on a desktop computer. But when it comes to laptops, and I appreciate some people may just buy a laptop and that's the only computer they use, so they don't have a desktop computer. Totally appreciate that. So it's a balancing act of what you want, with how much performance you want compared to what that performance means. If we could have a quad-core 12th generation processor and it was fanless and it meant no noise from the interiors, then great, but that isn't where we're going in the future. And my concern is that people will start seeing that actually what attracted them to the, don't get me wrong, of course we're all attracted to ChromeOS, the actual operating system, because it's much better than Windows when it comes to just being easy to use, secure, and it's just fast, which you don't get with Microsoft. That will always be there, luckily. But the issue is more around the design element side of things, which I'm concerned about. And also it's the battery as well. Chromebooks are known for having a great battery. And the Asus CX5, and it's a pretty big laptop, so it must have quite a big battery in there. The battery doesn't last that long. It doesn't last that long at all. I think it's maybe about 5 hours at the max if you're using it a lot, and that's not really what a Chromebook's about. And the reason for that is because there's the fans and the processor so powerful, they need more power. So there's a lot of things that are just making me think that I don't know, if I was looking for a brand new Chromebook, what would I do? Because I'd be a bit stuck. If I wanted something as good as the Pixelbook and I didn't want any fans and I didn't want any noise, I couldn't be looking at the latest Chromebooks with the fastest processor. And that's the problem. That's where manufacturers seem to be going. Yes, I could go down the budget route, but then the budget route, they're okay, but they don't look great. If I want a laptop that looks great, I'm not going to buy a budget laptop because they don't look fantastic. Also, the display is usually TN rather than IPS, which is okay, but for me, personal use, I wouldn't want that. I'd want an IPS panel, I'd want a good keyboard, I'd want good speakers, just like I got with the Pixelbook Go, and for the Asus C302 what I had previously, that was great as well. And I can get that, but it means getting really powerful Chromebook. So manufacturers really need to consider there's absolutely nothing wrong with bringing out the powerful Chromebooks, because there might be some people who want them, but they also need to consider in the future where they're going to go to bring a Chromebook out that isn't budget, cheaply made, no effort put into the design, cheap speakers, cheap screen. It needs to be good, decent Chromebook, but not to the point that it's so powerful that you've got to have all them fans, because people just don't want that. And I do think it's a real challenge for them going forward. And that's the only issue, well, it's not the only issue, but that's the concern I have about Google leaving the Chromebook market, because they were the ones who could do that. Now, looking at them, obviously you've got great manufacturers. You've got Asus. Will they bring one out that is what I've just sort of described type of thing? They possibly would. Acer, I'm not convinced they're just there quite yet. I can't imagine it would happen. HP, I'm sure they could if they put their mind to it. Samsung, I would suggest, is possibly arguably the only one at the moment where I think has got all that design style and they've got the know-how to bring out a Chromebook like that. And all it means is, I think what we need to do is move the tiers a little bit when it comes to Chromebooks. We've got budget Chromebooks, we've got medium spec Chromebooks, and we've got high spec Chromebooks. But at the moment, we haven't got many high spec Chromebooks. Most Chromebooks are in the medium range. But I think what we did, when it comes to these Intel quad core, that needs to be more of the higher range, and we need something more in the medium range. So we don't want to get to a point where even all medium Chromebooks are using the latest processors that require fans. That's the issue here, fans and vents. And I know people say, oh, they don't kick in that much. Well, I'm sorry, from my experience, they do. They don't kick in when you first start using it, and that's fine. They might kick in when you turn the power button on, and that's fine. But then you could do quite simple tasks, and you'd be quite amazed that a simple task can get the fans kicking in. And once they kick in, they can take a good 30 minutes before they calm down again, even if you stop doing a task that is quite performance needy. So it is a concern. So for me, I'm hoping that we see manufacturers put a bit more effort into the design element of Chromebooks and not think that, oh, all consumers will be cared about is that it's got the fastest 12 core generation processor, lots of RAM and lots of storage, because do you know what? We're not that stupid, actually. We want a bit more effort from manufacturers than that. We want more from you than that. We want a really good designed Chromebook that offers what the Chromebook's all about. And that's super slim, fanless, no heat from vents with fans from the processors. That's what I want, and that's what I definitely want from my Chromebook laptop, and I just hope manufacturers look into that in the future. So that's really it for this video. I just wanted to put my own opinion across about where I think we are at the moment with Chromebooks and where I hope we go in the future. I'm feeling a bit concerned that we're going down this route that all that matters is the fastest processor, and it's what a lot of blogs seem to be going down that route as well, because they talk about the amazing new Chromebook, and when you look into it, the reason they've said it's amazing is because it's got the fastest processor. That doesn't make it an amazing laptop, it just makes it fast. So I hope in the future we start seeing manufacturers put a lot more effort into the design, like the Samsung Chromebook 2, for example. You can get one of them, you can get it in the US with lots of different configurations, and you can get one in the UK. And the one in the UK, the only concern for me would be it's well designed Chromebook, but it's an Intel style run, so that's a bit too low for me, a bit too low. Yeah, so it's about getting into that medium, and I truly think that's what people will be looking for in the future. And if we want people to move to Chromebooks in the future, they're not going to be, well, if they come from Windows, they might be quite used to those fans and the noise that they create and the heat that they create. But Chromebook for me wasn't just about the operating system. It was the experience of using a laptop that was just nice to have on your lap for hours without it feeling uncomfortable from the noise and the heat. And I just hope manufacturers look at that going forward. Now Google is going to be out of the marketplace as far as creating new Pixelbooks. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like below and subscribe to the channel for future videos, and thanks for watching.